Catherine and Douglas have kindly asked me to say a few words about Fern's life just before she married Anthony, or just before she met Anthony, I should say. And I'm very pleased to be able to do so. But first of all, I should like to offer my deepest sympathy to all her family and friends. I've been rooting through my diaries for the years 1959, when I first met Fern Reay, as she then was, until 1962, when she and Anthony married. In 1959, she was working as an occupational therapist at the Maudsley Hospital in South London, having fairly recently come back from America. She was rather reticent about her time in the States, and so I can't tell you anything about that. Hers is the first phone number listed in my 1959 diary, which I didn't open until May of that year, when my friend Sid Rutland, who can't be here today, and I moved into a bed-sitter in Chelsea. I'd been living at home till then. The entry merely says, moved into flat and Fern. So I think she kindly helped us with the move, since neither of us were drivers at that time. And that sums her up. Always willing to help others, unfailingly bright and cheerful, and full of the joys of life, and taking part in as many outside activities as possible. I met her at an IVC function, though I don't remember which one. So perhaps a brief description of IVC, InterVarsity Club, would be useful to give you some background. It was founded in 1946, and by 1959 had about 2,000 members, graduates, and people of like interests, I quote from the rules, in London. And there were a number of associated clubs in Birmingham, Manchester, Stoke, etc. The London club had some 20 to 30 subsections, each with its own organiser. And members even wrote and performed a musical each year. Fern, of course, took part in many of these activities. Two that I attended regularly were Scottish dancing near the Albert Hall and ice skating at Queen's Ice Rink. And I suspect Fern and I first met at one of those. After that, we went to many events together, including Scottish and barn dancing, opera, concerts, the musical of West Side Story, and we sat in the back of the theatre for that, it was so popular, and The Mousetrap, then in its 7th great year. Now it's 70, if you remember. And we went to the festival hall twice to hear Tom Lehrer, an American physicist who wrote and sang satirical songs. Indeed, we each had a copy of his LP. We also enjoyed ice skating and punting, since we could do both tolerably well. After most such events, we went on my motorbike back to the flat in Battersea Bridge Road that she shared with Mary Gann for coffee and a chat. She was also into potting and made pots each week at the Camberwell Arts and Crafts College, which was fairly near where she worked. And again, I used to pick her up there and take her home. One weekend, we threw our ages to the wind with half a dozen others and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves building sandcastles in the Hastings area. Another weekend, she organised a fairly large group to go to her brother Nick's farm near Ashdown Forest, and we spent a day there clearing a public path of brambles, nettles, and even small trees, followed, of course, by a super open-air meal. She was an excellent cook, and I had memorable meals at the flat, including pheasant for the first time. Once, when trying to help, I managed to set fire to her frying pan, but she forgave me since it wasn't ruined. She also made marmalade every year, and I profited greatly from that. Her sense of humour was strong, and she covered her loo with cartoons and poems that tickled her fancy, such as "Everything I like is illegal, immoral, or fattening," though this didn't seem to stop her doing anything she liked. I also remember a ribald Cyril Fletcher odd ode starting, "This is the tale of Sonia Snell, to whom an accident befell. I recommend you Google it for a good laugh." Her phone number was BAT, for Battersea, 8071. In those days, as the older ones among you will remember, they all started with letters. Now, of course, it's 0208228. And when she answered the phone, she would say, "Battersea Dogs Home." Fortunately, she had a very distinctive voice, so not many people were bamboozled enough to put down the phone, thus having to pay for the connection. Or worse, if they were phoning from a call box, lose their 2 pennies by pressing the wrong button. I have 2 Anns to thank for the next 3 anecdotes. Ann Carter, now Porges, who also can't be here today, says that on the loo door was a ditty. "The lease of this well-watered spot is short. Haste then, for in 10 minutes more, the next will thunder at the door." This was, of course, well before Paris had its sanisets, which open after 15 minutes. Or I think she might well have installed one in the flat. Anne Stockbridge, now Bateman, who I hope is here today, was Scottish dancing one evening, and she found her bra was too tight. She went into a dark corner and removed it and forgot about it. At the end of the evening, Fern found it, and although she knew it was probably Anne's, she raised it above her head and said, "Whose is this?" It seems to me that this could be the subject, rather appropriately given Anne's surname, of an H.M. Bateman cartoon, the woman whose bra was lost and found. To show how indomitable Fern still was near the end of her life, Anne also told me that she was driving her to a ploughing match fairly recently, and suddenly Fern said, "Why are we going so slowly? Come on, put your foot down, we'll be late." I worked in the patent office in the 1960s and noted in my diary the description of one patent, the use of a hot iron for preserving a fern. Sadly, I never tried that technique on her. Fern also taught me how to deal with anagrams in cryptic crosswords by making a box of the letters in a random order. This stood me in good stead literally 10 days ago, when the Times crossword had a complicated clue, I won't read it out, and the answer was Royal Fern. You'll see that in Saturday's Times, and I think that is an appropriate note on which to finish. Thank you.